So, rugby may be going to continue amid all the dramas and closures and safety measures being put in place among the public in response to the COVID-19 thing. I'm not long out of bed, to be fair. I was reading about this before I went to bed last night, but it seems like there's more updated news about it, at least from Australia, which is saying they're going to have a 5-team comp to play domestically. Australia's got pretty strict travel restrictions at the moment, so foreign teams wouldn't be allowed to come in, but domestically they could potentially still have some kind of competition, and that's what they're looking at here. It does mean a couple of things. Firstly, it means the Sunwolves, who have all gone back to their respective kind of home countries, they're done, because there's no way they'd be able to get that team back into Australia on time, because if they're looking to start, I think early April, they said, you need to be in Australia and having gone through quarantine and whatnot. So I think they've actually closed it to non-residents, so that would be a lot of the Sunwolves players as well. So yeah, the Sunwolves, earlier than expected, seem to be gone. This may be the last time I get to do a video in a Sunwolves jersey, but yeah, it was always coming, and the Sunwolves were the first team affected by the whole thing anyway. What that does mean is kind of like an awkward situation where you gotta call up one of your exes. They've had to call up the Western Force to fill in for that fifth slot, and it looks like they've agreed. The initial reports that I read said Andrew Forrest, who's the owner, has given the okay for the Western Force to jump in with the other four Super Rugby teams, well, the four Super Rugby teams in Australia, to fill in for that fifth slot. So, yeah, the Force are back, apparently, to play in a 5-team domestic comp in Australia against the Tars, the Reds, the Rebels, and the Brumbies. So, yeah, pretty interesting development. They're looking to get this done, I guess, relatively quickly. They are trying to fill in something. They mentioned for the broadcasters and for the fans. I mean, essentially Fox Sports, I think, would be taking a pretty big hit in terms of not having sports on. They've paid a lot of money to broadcast Super Rugby, so they want something to show. So they're trying to fill in something as quickly as possible. They did mention that there would be the games behind closed doors, so the games wouldn't be open to the fans. So I think a few Australian sports are going ahead, despite all the restrictions and bans and whatnot. So I think the rugby league is still going on, also behind closed doors. I read the other day that the AFL, the Australian rules, is still going ahead. So yeah, in Australia it seems like things are still kind of trucking along. In New Zealand, there's nothing really. I think they even just cancelled the netball the other day, and that was played behind closed doors for the first week. So it seems like in New Zealand everything's kind of still a bit more shut down than that. They did also mention there would be a potential, like Sanzar is looking at, and I think some of this is still unconfirmed, like the South African teams to play a South African comp, the New Zealand teams to play a New Zealand comp, the Aussie teams to play an Aussie comp, and then hopefully, if everything has calmed down in a couple of months, then the winners of those competitions could play some kind of like Champions playoff, which is an interesting one because a lot of you guys have talked about that being the future of what should replace Super Rugby, is back to our domestic comps and then play kind of like a Champions League style competition anyway. So it's a bizarre turn of events in that it takes a global pandemic to get the Western Force back into Aussie rugby, like the mainstream fold, and potentially looking at some of those things that we've been talking about. But whether or not that goes ahead is really still up in the air. Like New Zealand's ban is like 100 people in like an indoor area, I think. So I read an article in the Herald today which said for a Super Rugby game in New Zealand to be played even behind closed doors with the players, support staff, medical staff, all that whatnot, it's like at least 150 people. So whether a stadium counts or is it outdoor, I don't know. So they would have to get some stuff by the government if they were going to do that. Not that sports at the moment is anybody's priority, but there's potentially rugby going to be on the tally come next month, at least in Australia. So yeah, it's an interesting turn of events. We will watch this one closely to see what happens. We'll see if Australia can get New Zealand and South Africa to follow suit. But you guys let me know your thoughts. Will you watch it, especially if you're outside Australia, if it does go ahead? Are you keen to see how the Force rank? Do you think they'll have dipped in terms of their levels compared to the Super Rugby teams? But yeah, you guys let me know your thoughts, and see you later, Sun Wolves. Talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.